noise!
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth and Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy. Hey, before we get started with today's show, I just want to draw your attention to new merchandise. Funkin' Stuff and Truth and Rhythm designs are in, and they look pretty darn cool. So show your support, help support the program, and show off some stylish merchandise and apparel. Only at the Funkin' Stuff store. So you got the MCA deal.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that experience differ, better or worse, than the previous one?
Well, I was able to have some kind of creativity in this one, and they paid attention to me, and you know, were trying to come up with a great promotional package for me to introduce me. So they. Before I even did the record, they wanted me to do Beverly Hills Cop 2. That's how they were trying. That's how they wanted to introduce me, which they had the producer Howie Rice produce it. Howie Rice did Patti LaBelle before, I think, but she wasn't on this second Beverly Hills Cop 2. So the song that she was supposed to sing, she didn't do it. So Lou Silas and MCA had me to do the song. So I guess that was like an introduction before.
And she had new attitude on the first one, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then she was supposed to do a song called I Can't Stand It. But I ended up doing it, which was really cool, you know. I kind of carried my brother with me on all my work, you know, and doing sessions and things like that.
Well, Blue Velvet, I mean, was way beyond that first record, no question, you know.
Yes.
And you had Jesse on there, and how did you end up getting Jesse incorporated into that?
Well, at first, they wanted Cher and Jimmy to do the record. But they turned me down. And I think they were just, you know, doing all kinds of, you know, they were doing Sherelle, they were doing, you know, and I think that they just, sometimes, you know, people get swamped busy doing records, and sometimes, you know, I guess they're in that position to pick and choose who they want to do, and you know, they really only know me through Minnesota back in the day, you know. So they turned me down, and Lil Silas said, "Well, who else from Minneapolis you think, you know, that you would want to do your record?" And I said, "Jesse Johnson." They said, "Well, can you find him?" So I found him, called him. I said, "Hey, I need you to do this record." Terry and Jimmy, you know, turned me down. He answered that call immediately and made the deal, and I went to Minnesota, back to Minneapolis, and worked on that album in the midst of working on Love Struck, in the midst of working, you know, he was doing like movies and recording records and you know, he was just like multitasking hard, competitively, consistently, you know. And so I ended up going there and doing the record. But when I got there, Scott, he had all the songs in another key, a key that was so high. And he was basing it off of when I was younger. He wasn't like saying, well, what key you think? Let's check your keys. So, and back then it was the 2-inch tapes. So you really couldn't like go back and, you know what I mean? So he says, well, you're going to sing it. I said, okay. So, you know, he ended up doing that record, which was a lot of fun. I had a great time doing that record, that Blue Velvet album, because I had more creativity, and the producers that I picked and wanted to work, you know, always wanted to work with. But I ended up doing the Action Jackson movie at his, you know, writing that song, playing piano, you know, and Love Struck. I did, you know, in the midst of in between albums of me doing my album, I was kind of doing his stuff, and you know, so
That's,
it was really cool.
Man, just hearing you say Love Strike, that's one of my favorite Jesse tracks for sure.
Yeah, it was great.
Such a fierce groove.
Yeah, I still listen to that every now and then. I'll put that Love Struck on, you know.
Fiction was like a kind of a Tamara, Minneapolis kind of funk track on that record, and Boyfriend was sort of like a Pebbles kind of, sort of reminded me of like a Pebbles kind of dance track. But you also had on that record people like the Lewis Brothers from Atlantic Star, and Mtume was on a track, and
my sweethearts, all of them were great. Fiction was actually from Morris Day and the Time, and he was getting ready to cut that for Morris because it was like a takeoff of Jungle Love. And I begged him for the track. I says, I need that track to let them know that I can go there too. I can be funky and I can be low, and it took me like 3 days to talk to Stewart into giving me that song. I was like, you don't even know, you know, I was like, Morris ain't gonna do better than me, you know. But, you know, what do I know, you know. But yeah, that was, Fiction was a takeoff, really a second of Jungle Love. Yeah.
And then you did a cover of Rocksteady. What, you know, Jesse is such an enigma to most of us. And such a talent too. And I met him once. I went backstage at a show he did in Anaheim one time, and he's nice enough, you know, but a little distant, at least, you know, in that initial meeting. What can you tell us about Jesse the man?
Jesse, man, is very, very a sensitive cat. Very sensitive. You know, Jesse's a great cook. A great father, man. He's my daughter's godfather. You know, Jesse is about. I don't need to talk. My music speaks for itself, and you know, he's knowledgeable, man. He's just knowledgeable in anything that you want to talk about. You know, he knows about. He's very realistic. You know, he's not, you know, somewhere oblivious of anything. He's very on point of what he's doing. He's focused. He's just one of those kind of musicians that, you know, he's not looking to do what everybody else wants him to do. He's just kind of like, he's from Rock Island. He's from St. Louis. You know, when I found Jesse, he was playing in a biker bar doing blues. That's really where his first love is the blues and that kind of thing, you know. You know, but as far as his personality, man, he's awesome, man. When I work with him, it's like it's like working with my brother. Like, I've been Jesse's girlfriend longer than all his real girlfriends. You know what I mean? So I know him. I've been there with his kids being born. He's been there for mine. You know, he was my wedding, you know. So, but he trusts me with his heart and what, you know, anything that he talks about. I don't, just like, there's just a certain code thing that, that I have with certain people in Minnesota, that I don't really get into. However, it's their business, a personal thing. But as far as, Jesse's nice. I mean, he's kind of one of those people that when he feels the way he feels the way he feels. He doesn't sugarcoat with you. He's not going to sit and be, it's really who he's just a person that he will tell me, I'm just not feeling. I don't want to do that record. And there's some, there are some things, between the time and what, they've been through together, however, Jesse has his reasons that people really don't know. Bean and them have their reasons that, they try not to share. But for the most part, you can't take this brother's talent, man. He is one of the most resilient geniuses, man, to work with in the studio. Genius. Like, I mean, he's got that extra thing. It's just like, for me, like, it's like I asked George Clinton one time. I was working with George. I said, George, how do you deal with Scheider and Eddie and all of these cats and Boogie and them? He said, they're just geniuses. They're just geniuses, man. I said, how do you, they got so much going on. He said, yeah, but they're geniuses. That's how this dude is. He's just a genius in what he does, and he's just very, to himself. He doesn't, he's just one of them kind of people that just is kind of an introvert. He's more probably an introvert than anything. He's an extrovert with me, but,
And when he has a six string in his hands, but otherwise,
yeah, he's just a music dude. He just, but he's a normal cat. He goes and picks his daughter from school, and he does the whole nine. He can cook though. That's what I gotta say. He cooks a mean salmon, man, and pastas and stuff like that. But some people are just strange, man, that are just geniuses. Some people are weird, different, you know what I'm saying? There's certain things about me that may be a little quirky to people.
Sure.
But when it comes down to the music, that's what we want to do. Prince had his personality like that, but it came down to the music, everything, that's where all the feeling came in. That's when he was talking to you. So.
I heard, though, that, Jesse can be a taskmaster. He wants to get down to business when he's in a recording situation and there's music to be done. He is all business.
And I like that. He's all business. You don't want to hear about. He'll work with you, but if he'll work with you. But but nobody likes to do a bunch of work, and nobody likes to do a bunch of work and then not be either celebrated for their work or appreciated or paid for their work. What they, what the business end was talked about. I know when we work, we did that Blues in My Sunshine album in 10 days, done. But the drums were like 30 more days of mixing drums and making sure it's sounding blues, but yeah, me and him have like a connection. We work together, man, no matter what situation arises. He is like, we get in there and knock it out, and, and he's just good. He's just great at mixing. He's great at producing it. He's just one of those cats, man. The sound that he comes with is just so amazing. It's great. But it's like anybody else. Some people are more serious than each other in the business end. You know what I mean? Some people get nervous when they have to do the business, when it comes down, okay, well, this is how much, so, it's no different than, working with a big star and somebody saying, oh, yeah, she's just hard to work with. No, she's not hard to work with. She just knows what she wants, and she's bringing it to you. And maybe you might think she's hard to, or he or she is hard to work with, because they're just letting you know what they need. They're not agreeing with everything.
There needs to be a mutual respect, and understanding that person's process and respecting that, and the results speak for themselves. So that's how I feel about it.
Exactly. I hope I didn't go around the bend with it, but
well, you have a unique perspective, working so closely with Jesse, and so many people love him and love his music, and it's just nice to hear more of a personal side of it, and not just know him only through hearing his music or hearing controversy around him and what happened with the time, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, and I know all of what's transpired. I hear it from Bean. I hear it from Monty. I just kind of like this. Mum's the word.
Fair enough. Let's move on. You mentioned George and that whole scene. What is your affiliation with P-Funk?
Well, I knew P-Funk long time. I mean, through a friend of mine, Eban Kelly, who just passed away too. And Eban used to kind of go out with George and stuff. So I would, and I knew Andre Fox real well. Kind of being in the same circles in the studio, things like that, just being a fan, knowing somebody that is affiliated with George, and that, hey, I want to meet George, man. I just grew up on him, and because I really started gravitating to that funk when Bootsy came out, and George came out. But just meeting them, being in the studio, recording in one room, they're in another room, hearing that all that funk coming out of that room, and just getting to know all of them, Trelude and Andre Fox, and plus, matter of fact, I did this record, Painkiller. Eddie Hazel is on there, but not mentioned. Eddie Hazel is on a song on my Painkiller album called When Johnny Comes Marching In Tonight. It's got Robert Wilson from the Gap Band, and Eddie Hazel's on there playing.
On Painkiller?
Not on Painkiller, on the song called When Johnny Comes Marching In.
Oh, yeah, because I know, well, that has the P-Funk horns on it, so I was going to ask you about that.
Mm-hmm. And Eddie Hazel did like some tracks on there and played on there. Not sure why his name wasn't mentioned on there. However, I was there. I seen him, and we had, and George was recording some stuff too in the other room, doing some other stuff in the studio called Dubmaster. That was on Magnolia, I think, in Lancashire. And I think he loved Painkiller, and then he was doing Trelude's record. And so he said, hey, can you come to Soundcastle and do some backgrounds? And I said, yeah. So I came to Soundcastle, did some backgrounds for Trelude on his record. To find out, George got a call from MCA and said, you got to take her off. She can't be on that record. That was so. He was like, okay, so he had to take me off and put, I think, Sheila and somebody else on there. But it's just all through affiliation. Then me and Trelude were close, and so he wrote this song about me called Susu, and I was really like shocked to hear this song.
I didn't know that was about you.
It's about me.
Wow, that's a cool track. And I think it's on How Late Do You Have to Be, or Before You're Absent? Yeah.
Before You're Absent. Yeah. So that song is about me. He mentions my nickname, that Susu Bookie Baby. And I didn't really never, you can't really understand Trelude half of the time. I mean, I can now, but I used to just always nod my head. Yeah, Trelude. Yeah.
Well, I know George had a deal with it. I mean, he had deals with everybody, but he had a deal with MCA at the same time you were there for a Funkadelic album that they scrapped. But 89, he was on MCA for the Funkadelic album. They only put out a 12-inch single, and then they, for whatever reason, they didn't put it out.
What single was that?
What's that?
What single?
By Way of the Drum.
It's fun. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just know that when I was doing the Painkiller album, they had put that thing on the shelf, man, for so long that I was just, by that time, Pebbles was coming out, Guy was out, the new Jack Swing was out. My record was kind of like on this whole funk baptized kind of vibe, Painkiller and PMS and MC. And by the time it was coming out, there was nothing on the record that represented New Jack. And so 7 Days, 7 Nights came at the last minute again. We had to we had to figure out. And that's when Lainey Stewart came in and did 7 Days, 7 Nights.
Do you know that that record is on Amazon now? It shows for $969.
Get out of here! How can I get the 900?
Didn't you stash boxes full of these somewhere?
No. No, I don't think I ever got paid on that record. You know what? I never got paid on any of those records I did. Never. I never got any kind of compensation for those records.
Did you do some videos for those two records?
I just did one, the 7 Days, 7 Nights, and it's so ironic because it's so funny because a week before that record was about to be gold, they dropped me.
Wow.
Ernie Singleton came in, and Lul was out, and anything that Lul had signed that was just not like a big hit, they got rid of, and they dropped me. We were getting ready to do the video to, I think, Sex or Love. They dropped me.
Carl's on that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you ever heard of the group 101 North? George Duke was doing a song with for his record, the Broken, and he had my brother sing it, called So Easy, and he did the record. He went to the radio station just to test it out, and the next thing you know, the song was in heavy rotation. And George called my brother and said, "Hey, we need you to put a band together right now. We're gonna finish this album. This is gonna be your record." And the record was with Carl, my brother Carl, Everett Hart, Josie James, a few other people. I think Robert Brookins was in it, or me. I'm not really sure, but they ended up doing this record. They had a couple records out. George Duke did. It was 101 North. So when you get a chance, listen to it. My brother's name is Carl. Its song is called "So Easy." Great song, but it really made some noise. Yes.
I'll check that out. Yeah, thanks. So when you did those MCA records, did you get to go out on tour at all and perform any of those?
No, I think I did some promotional stuff. Like Jack the Rapper back then, Impact, and I think I came out and kind of we did a couple one-offs, Mary J. Blige 411 album, and then the Jack the Rapper was with New Edition and Bobby. However, Bobby called me and wanted me to come out on tour with him on the Don't Be Cruel record. And I was in there just rehearsing and singing, and then Lil walked in and said, "What are you doing here?" And I says, "I'm going out with Bobby. I mean, my record is not even out." He was like, No, honey, you can't go out with Bobby. You're getting ready to go on a promotional tour. So I went on a small one, but no, I never really toured that record, no. Now, I think kind of much after that record, I had kind of I kind of took a turn in my life and didn't, I was just kind of done with the MCA thing because they were kind of done with me. So it was kind of like
mutual.
It was all kind of mutual, And quiet as it's kept, I was pregnant. I was pregnant on that video, and I was scared to tell him. Mm-hmm. I was about 3 months pregnant on that Painkiller record, album cover. But I didn't want to tell him because, my whole life has been working, singing, don't have no kids, don't get fat. It was a lot of pressure, being in the entertainment business. It was a lot of pressure, compared to now, it's a different kind of pressure. But for me, it was just a lot of pressure. You need to stay skinny. You don't need to be eating, I mean, it was kind of overwhelming to the point where I just turned into a natural girl and just was like, I'm doing what I want to do. Y'all can figure this out yourselves. I can't even figure all of that out, And plus, I really didn't have a knowledge of the record business and publishing and things like that, I was really banking on Scott, being a full-on star. But, however, I became my worst enemy, just in how I was moving in life and moving in the record bit, and just how I was just doing the wrong things. You know what I mean? I was out there and wild and doing, it was the drug, sex, and rock and roll baby for me.
Enjoying Hollywood, yeah.
Enjoying Hollywood. Yeah, so, I was pregnant. And so I was, and then my life had changed, just spiritually and everything. And I was ready to kind of,
change course.
Because now all the MCA people that were there weren't there no more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the whole industry changed over so much around that time. Yeah.
Yes, and that was during the time when they were buying Motown thing, and they had my record on hold, and I was like, well, just let me out. And they was like, no. So I kind of lost hope with that whole thing over there.
So you became a mom, and you started. That's when you started doing some more session stuff, right? In the 90s.
That's when I got into that session.
Yeah.
Stuff. I had my first daughter, who was a chronic sickle cell, and I spent a lot of my time in the hospital with her and figuring out, okay, what are you going to do next? Because my whole thinking in life was, I want to do everything in the music business that I can do. And I started, I was doing, actually, I didn't know what to do with my life. I was like, I've never had a job. I don't know how, you know, I don't have, you know, the ethics, and I don't know how to work in the workplace. And what real creative person, you know, do you know that can sit with a job and just be craving some music? That's like George Clinton going to get a regular job and putting away music for, you know, I don't need no music. No, you know. Then I got a call from one of my very great singing friends, Penny Ford. She called me. She I don't know if you know who Penny Ford is.
I'm familiar with her. I don't know her personally.
Penny Ford is an amazing singer and did the Snap and the whole thing. And she called me. She says, "Hey, I'm kind of out of here. I do this session work. If you would like to do some sessions, I'd like to turn you on to such and such." And she turned me on to one producer, and you know, the next thing you know, I was like a blue light special around LA. You know, I started doing these sessions and meeting all these producers, and then one day I was upstairs of this building on Sunset, and the producer that did the other producer that did the Painkiller record had a studio up there. Him and this cat Bill Myers did a lot of horn stuff, and I see this chick running through the hallways looking crazy, and it was Diane Warren. And she walked up to me and she said, "Oh," Jimmy said, "Hey, I want you to meet Sueann." She said, "Oh, can she sing?" And he said, "Can you?" And then she said, "Can you sing?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Meet me at this address tomorrow. I want you to do a demo for me." And I went to the studio, and it was Because You Love Me. It was Celine Dion, Because You Love Me. That was the first song I started with her.
Wow, that was quite a fortuitous encounter.
Tell me about it. Yeah, and I ended up, you know, arranging this song and getting the background singers for Celine's Master and David Foster. And I walked in, and it was David Foster. I was like, "Is that David Foster?" You know, I was like, "Oh my God, another new world has opened up," you know. David Foster sitting there, and I hired my brother, and he helped because he was very in tune with all the session singers there, you know. And so I said, "I need you to put these singers together," and stuff. And then that's kind of how the ball started rolling. You know, was doing that.
So it was a new chapter opened up.
Yeah, exactly. Then I got married, had another kid, and you know, I ended up working with Rod Stewart at like 8-9 months pregnant. One album I worked with him, I wasn't pregnant. Second album, I was pregnant, and we did like some one-offs. And I was pregnant. He wanted me to go on the road, pregnant, and he was going to get a nurse. I was like, "I can't do that, man. I can't even hardly stand up here on this mic no more," you know. And yeah, but you know, things started moving really, really fast in the session world, you know, for me. And that's when I started really kind of like, my name was out there now, and people wanted, but it was industry name. You know, it was just, I was industry, and it was a great run. It was a really, really nice run, and I made a lot of money.
Did you typically go in the studio when the stars were in there also, or did you go in and cut separate from them?
I was in there with some of the stars. Yeah, I was in there with quite a few.
Was there one or two in particular that stand out in your memory for whatever reason that you could share?
Patti LaBelle was one that stood out. I worked on her record, and she was in there recording, and Diane Warren was driving her crazy. And she came out and said to me, "Can you please help me with Diane?" And I said, "Diane, That's Patti LaBelle. Let her do what she needs to do. She knows the song. Well, you know, she needs it. I said, man, that is Patti LaBelle. If you start talking to her, you're talking to her like she's like a new singer around the block. That woman has been doing songs before you were born, damn. I said, let me go in there and help her with her vocals. So I went in there and helped her with her vocals, and, you know, and so Diane felt very trusting with me to do stuff like that. So I would come in there. Since I did the demo, I knew how to produce. I was like, I know how to produce. I'm always producing myself, arranging these vocals, you know. So she would give me a lot of leeway, and then I would go be working with David. I worked real closely, like with Rod Stewart. I worked with Bon Jovi, Edgar Winter. All of, you know, I would be in there with Oleta Adams.
Both Winter Brothers, right? I saw that.
Yeah, both of them. Yeah. I never met Whitney, and I never met Celine Dion. But Whitney would always tell David, go get Sueann to sing it. Go get her to do the thing, you know. Which is understandable, because most really great singers, they want to hear something different all the time. So they're like, you know, I know how I sound, but I might want to take some of her little riffs, and, you know. I did meet Tony, and I met Aaliyah. I worked with Aaliyah in the studio, and we did the one I gave my heart to, and Christine Aguilera, Taylor Day. I mean, you know, I've met a lot of them, but the two main I wanted to meet, I never got to meet.
Was it strange for some of those? I mean, obviously with Celine Dion and some of the other ones you mentioned, Patti LaBelle, you know, they can blow. But some of the ones on your list, I don't need to mention them, you know, are not known for being necessarily great singers. So is it kind of weird when you do backup and maybe you're a stronger singer than the actual lead singer?
Yeah, of course. But, you know, just the fact that they're, you know, they're famous, and it's good credit for me. That's, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, just the work alone, you know. I never got into the who could sing better thing. I was so intrigued with the work and the process of what me and the producers, like working with David. I was so into the process of arranging that I just didn't even think about if the girl could sing good. However, I understood it. So my demos the reason why they would use me to do the demos, because I had an awareness not to be too fly singing all the time. I really kept it pop, and maybe I would have some variations of something cool. But for the most part, I didn't go in, like when I would do a demo for Tony Braxton or somebody, I didn't go in with the whole idea of sounding like Tony. I could, you know, they would tell me, no, Sueann, just sound like you. Don't try to imitate Tony and Whitney, and so I just didn't do that. So I just didn't think about it.
I saw a credit on here. You are on Ishan Cooper's record?
Yeah, that's my sweetheart.
How'd you connect with him?
Through Steve Boyd.
Oh, okay.
You know, Steve was, you know, they were cool, and he asked me to do some stuff for his records, and so Steve would tell me, you know, hey, this dude wants to, so we'd be working on the stuff, and then so finally he just said, hey, I want you to do the Prince song, and I was like, okay. So yeah, but we talk sometimes, you know, we'll talk to each other, but yeah, a lot of those musicians and stuff, man. One thing that I love, man, about the funk is that they don't care how old George is. They don't care who. They just want to come and hear the funk. They get it. It's like his fans, his real fans get it. They get it. You know. And so yeah, I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of them. You know, working with Dawn on her record, her solo record. I worked on that. I don't know if you remember a song called "Disco to Go."
Oh yeah, I love it.
Okay, so have
She
you ever
redid
heard?
it, I know.
Huh?
She redid it on that record.
Yeah, if you listen to, there's verses on there. If you listen to the original Disco to Go, Georgia never did any verses. It was all backgrounds. Well, I rewrote that song on there. I rewrote all the verses, and that's me singing under there. Yeah. Actually, me and my ex-husband wrote that song and put verse. I said, let's put some verses in here, so it just kind of sounds now like a complete song, you know. And so I wrote these verses, me and him, and I just sung it, and she's just kind of on top right and singing, you know, the song with me. But yeah, that was a great time working with Dawn and Jeanette and doing the Funk Festival. Back in 2010 or 11, that was really cool. And Sheila, love Sheila. I love all them girls, man. They just brought something that was so authentic and cool. But my favorite dog, and we hung together so tight, was Malia Franklin, man.
Yeah, I know her.
Man.
Her birthday just passed. Yeah, would have been 69, I think.
Yeah, I was there the night before she passed away at the hospital. And it was, and I just sung to her. I just sung all these gospel songs to her. I know she heard me, you know. But yeah, that was my girl. Like a true friend of mine.
All Funketeers owe her a lot of gratitude for, you know, bringing so many great talents together, and as well as the stuff she did herself. So, yeah.
Right. Well, I brought Jesse to the time.
Oh,
I don't know any other story, but I'm the one who found him first and brought him to Minneapolis. Oh, I had to put that in there, but.
Well, you mentioned 2010 was a date you just mentioned. I think that's the year that blues record came out with Jesse and you. How did that come together? And it's hard to find, but I, you know, telling viewers and listeners, you know, seek it out because it's the real blues.
It actually happened. I was working with a blues artist named Zach Harmon, who used to, great producer. He produced Karen White stuff, and he produced, I think, the hit for a group called Troop. And he had decided that he wanted to do blues. And he went into this blues world. He was a great friend of mine. We wrote a lot of stuff together for Freddie Jackson. We did all kinds of music together. And then he called me to do a duet on his record. And so I did a song called Wounded on his record and toured. I was opening up for Bobby Blue Bland and Willie Clayton and all these amazing blues cats. I was just like, wow, this is another world too. And I did like some festivals. Came down by your parts and did the Coltrane Jazz Festival down there. I think 2011, they were doing these Coltrane Jazz Festival series, I think, every year. And so I went down there with Zach Harmon and did it. And then finally I said, you know what? I really want to do something different. I've covered every genre. I'd like to just do something that I want to do. And so I called Jesse and say, hey, man, I want to do a blues record. He says, well, how you want the blues record? I says, I want you to do the blues record like if it was your album and not my album. Do it like how you would do your blues record. And so that's what we did. he incorporated some things that he knew about me. There's a track on there called Blues in My Sunshine, which is the title track. Talks about a testimony that my ex-husband wrote the song because he knows me. I don't know if you know my ex-husband, but it was some really great stuff on there. Then we wrote a song about my father because he was a drummer, so we did kind of that swing type, bluesy jazz type thing, But the album was a phenomenal album. I have to say it was one of the greatest masterpieces I've ever done, thus far. But
definitely the most raw thing that you've been able to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was really great. And went to Minneapolis and sold out a couple shows there, and one show, and it was really great. We had a good time, and I did some shows and stuff, and was opening up for people, but again, we didn't really go full force into the thing. That's a record that you can put on right now and not even get tired of it. And I can truly, honestly say that, because it just sounds new every time you play it for somebody. It's not like I'm saying, oh, no, I don't want to hear that. No, I could hear that album.
Yeah, as long as it's well recorded, the blues are timeless.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So after, from like the 90s on, did you cross paths with Prince at all? And, leading up to when he left us? And
yeah, I did. He was playing at the Hard Rock, and I went to the show. And I stood right to the stage and was like flicking my fingers on his toes, like that, just kind of flicking my fingers on his toes. I was right up on the stage, and I looked up, then he looked down, and he smiled, and he just winked, and that was it. I didn't try to go back there and, do, I just wanted him to see, I just wanted to connect with each other, He looked like he was just refreshed to see a face that he knew, because he just looked down at me and just kind of cracked a smile and went, and kind of, and I turned, kind of walked away, and,
What year about was that?
2015.
So was he with Third Eye Girl?
Yeah, he was with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was very bittersweet, man. I mean, it was bittersweet, but I mean, just the whole situation of it was just, I didn't see that. I don't think anybody seen that coming. It was, Jesse was kind of, I could tell he was kind of numb for, he was kind of numb about that. And then he was angry because, he's one of those that really knows some stuff, and has told me some things about Prince and who he really was, that, everybody tells their side and, what they know. And then, there are some people that are not true telling things. And however, one thing about Jesse Johnson, if he tells you something, you better bet your bottom dollar is the truth.
Mm. Well, I know Jesse went and played at the tribute at Paisley Park, Yeah. So, I mean, he definitely paid some respects.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he understands, Prince was the biggest part of his life like that. He gets it, But I just kind of wish that they would have really settled whatever was going on with them. but it just never really panned out. You know, people go their own ways, and sometimes people can be prideful, you know, and wait on people, and sometimes it's too late.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of non-closure issues with you know.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
There is so much non-closure that, and you know what? You know, we might not ever know all of it, but you know, but one thing, I'll tell you one thing that I do miss, man, more than anything is I would rather see the whole original time than to see halftime.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he calls. He calls more. He said, "Oh, the halftime band." I say, "No, you guys. Yeah, we're the whole time. We're the."
I understand. I've never been big on nostalgia because as a true funketeer, I mean, I don't think true funketeers aren't very nostalgic. You know, we want serious, original jamming.
Yes.
You know, it's got to have the core feeling and the core people to be authentic and real. And
yeah. You can't, you know.
Don't fake the funk.
Don't fake the funk, man. You know, I mean, going to hear, you know, as me growing up listening, you know, George and Bootsy, you know, my first, I think, 2 concerts I went to was with Prince, was Bootsy and the Barcades, and the other one was Patrice Rushen, because he was trying to get her to be in his band. And she looked at him like, dude, do you know who I am? I've got hits. You're still on your little beginning thing here. But, yeah. But I think even working, you know, when I've done some things with George on stage live, it's just been I always call them my funk baptism music. That's where I get my spiritual awakening, is with George.
What tracks have you got into participate in on stage? Do you remember?
Well, the whole show I've done.
Oh, you've done whole shows.
Times, yeah. I got pictures on stage. I got pictures on stage with me and him. He flew me once to, I think, Orlando, Texas or something, and had me perform. I opened up for him at BB King's in New York. I did the blues record and opened up. He let me open up the whole show and do like a couple hours. It's online. Sound wasn't good. It was kind of dry. You know, they didn't, you know, it was the house recording, so it didn't have that, you know, you didn't hear the audience or anything, but yeah, he used to say, "Hey, Sueann, you need to write your book." And I say, "Write a book? What am I going to write about?" He said, "You know everybody." He said, "Everybody know you. You've been through a lot of stuff." I say, "Okay, write a book." I didn't even think about that. I said, "So what am I going to name the book, George?" He said, "Shit, you in all Prince's books." He said, "Name the book. I got a book too."
And now he has a book, but when I was with him in '89, I was asking him to let me write his book, and he was like, "I'm not ready yet." You know,
yeah.
he was not ready.
Do you write books?
Oh yeah, I wrote this one.
Wow, I want that book. Where's that book? Where can I buy that book at?
Oh, well, it's on Amazon. But
Okay.
I've always been a crusader to try to get funk better legitimized, better attention, and all the artists to get the acclaim and attention and hopefully money that they deserve. So,
oh, that's awesome.
you know, I'd heard and seen your name for so long, and you know, because you were close to the scene that I've been into forever, but you know, never connected. So, and I'm thinking we must have probably been at some of the same things when I was in Los Angeles and just didn't know. And, so it's funny. So I'm glad we finally connected.
So you look like I've met you before. I think I've met you at one of the concerts, George's. Did you go there a lot?
All the time. Yeah.
I've seen.
Yeah. And I've been backstage too, because, I know George a little bit. And
sometimes, I reminisce back on the 90s and, and I miss those times because, we really had real feel-good music. I just go back some nights and I'll be in the middle I'll start dancing and listening to some Frankie Beverly and some Cameo and some Function and Bootsy and, and just, and it just almost kind of refreshes your spirit. That's why I just call it funk baptism music.
Yeah, that stuff's like spinach. I was telling people when I do my workout, that stuff is like Popeye spinach for me. It's like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's why I was so honored, and thank you again. I was so honored to be on your platform because you represent the authenticness of music. Not just funk, but music, period. Great music. Authentic music. I like who he's interviewing, and I like what he's representing and what you were talking about in your bio thing. He was, and that's why I wanted to do I wanted to do your show because I just don't do everybody's show. But I'm honored. Thank you for even having me.
Well, thank you for being on, Sueann. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that we'll do it again because, like you said, there's so many stories.
And I'm very proud of you, man. Thank you for keeping the funk alive, baby. Thank you. You and Keith Jackson and all of you guys. Mwah.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkandstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkandstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkandstuff.net, and linking through funkandstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkandstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkandstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.